All right. Hello and good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is having a great day today. I'd like to thank you for joining us for Leverage LinkedIn Success. Reach your audience on LinkedIn for 15 minutes a day. Today, we'll be hearing from Nancy O'Leary, Vice President of Custom Direct, and she will be explaining how you can build your brand today on LinkedIn only with 15 minutes a day. My name is Eric Ray. I'm a marketing specialist here with IMEC. If you're not familiar with IMEC, we are a team of industry improvement specialists uh, with the goal to ignite manufacturing excellence in Illinois. A few things before we begin today. Let you know that we are recording today's session, and in a few days we will send out an email with the recording, along with the slide deck and other additional resources provided by Nancy today. And during the presentation as well, we ask you please keep your audio on mute, but please, we encourage you and feel free to use the chat for any questions, comments. We want to be a good back and forth conversation, so please do not hesitate to use the chat with today. And we'll answer any questions you may have. And with that being said, I will pass over to Nancy and we'll get started.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. I am just getting this started, and let's go to desktop one. So sorry, and let's hit share, and let's get in. So congratulations for joining us today on learning how to leverage LinkedIn. If you are already involved in LinkedIn yourself personally, and maybe even your company has some degree of a presence on LinkedIn, this is going to be a phenomenal way for you to spend the next 50 minutes or so learning how to really build your brand and expand your reach on LinkedIn. So thanks so much for joining us, whether it's live or if you're going to be watching this a little bit later. And let's just jump right in. What we're going to be covering today. There's going to be 5 really key concepts that we're going to go through. First of all, we're going to talk about why LinkedIn. Really, it's reached a point where if you're not on LinkedIn as a company, you're going to be left behind. There's just so much B2B work that's going on LinkedIn right now.
Right.
We're also going to be talking about the must-haves for your LinkedIn company profile page. You're going to be getting a checklist that's part of that downloadable that you'll be getting that Eric just referenced. We're going to go through exactly what kind of information you should have on your company's profile page, where to get that information. We're also going to talk about how you can build an entire year's worth of content in a single hour. Honestly, that's going to be a really fun conversation, and there might be some questions on that, but believe me when I tell you, you will be able to accomplish that. We'll also talk about spending 15 minutes a day on building brand awareness for your company on LinkedIn, and then how to really engage your team to get your team to start spreading your reach as well. And then last but certainly not least, we'll talk about a couple scenarios where you might want to get some help. But let's just jump in and let's get started. Lean in or get left behind on LinkedIn is a really cute phrase to use. But to be honest with you, over 80% of B2B occurs on LinkedIn between connections. And that capital C, as you know, on LinkedIn means that you're connected. It's kind of the same thing as being friends on Facebook or what have you. So the connections on LinkedIn, the fact that that's such a robust number, many people ask, well, is it really that those connections occurred once 2 companies started working together, or were they connected and then they started working together? I'm going to throw it at you and say it's probably irrelevant. The reality of it is there's a lot of work that's occurring between people who know each other on LinkedIn. So congratulations again for being here today, because you really want to be part of it. There are more than 590 million professionals on LinkedIn worldwide. It's an incredible number when you start to think about expanding your brand reach. And please remember that the most important aspect of all social media, regardless of what channel we're talking about, but today it's LinkedIn, the entire purpose of it is to drive traffic to your website. That's going to be a very familiar theme throughout our time together today. Driving traffic to your website is the most vital aspect of being on LinkedIn. And I know that that's going to sound a little counterintuitive because this is all about building your brand, and it is. But if you think about it, your social media presence, specifically even on LinkedIn, There's this analogy that I think really drives this point home. Your social media presence is like the window to what you do. Your website is the front door. That's really what allows people to walk in and fully understand the scope of what you can accomplish and what you provide. So let's start talking about your LinkedIn profile checklist. And first and foremost, I'm going to switch over and show you a different screen. This entire checklist is going to be, again, part of your downloadable that you're going to get. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. I'm going to share another screen so that we can kind of look at this live together. And does everyone see my screen on here? Yes. Excellent. And so on here, here's Custom Direct. This is the company that I work for. And this is the overview section that we're going to talk about in just a moment. But let's first look at what a business page ideally should look like on LinkedIn. One of the first things we want to talk about is a logo. If your company does not have a properly sized logo or a logo at all on their business profile page on LinkedIn, you stand about a 60% chance of folks not even looking at your page. They will not consider it a serious page and they leave. It's a startling statistic. When we talk about it being sized properly, that checklist that you're getting is going to tell you that it needs to be 400 pixels by 400 pixels. We strongly encourage you from a design standpoint, try to use the portion of your logo that doesn't include any words here on LinkedIn in this spot. You can see that it's really small, words get really tiny. And most importantly, you have all of this opportunity to talk about what you do in the name of your company. So if you've got just that icon portion of your logo, make sure that it's really clear, that you got a high-res version that you can drop in here. This area is called the cover image on LinkedIn. And we have leaned in to using our tagline right here, right up on the image. I will caution you though, depending on the size of the screen, words can change when you have them as part of your cover image. So be cognizant of that. On a full-size screen, this works great for us, and we've intentionally placed it there. But oftentimes, if you've got a really long tagline or there's a lot that you'd like to say, we'd say save it and put it down here. Make sure that the image that you use up here in this cover image speaks to your capabilities. And talking about speaking to your capabilities, right here, the name of your company, you want to talk really specific with your tagline about what you do here. And then it will auto-populate in this area from down below where you're located, how many people are following you, and this general, very general category that's available on LinkedIn. So we've talked a little bit about your logo, this cover image, and your tagline. But again, we want to get back down to the about section here. And this about section is really robust and it's really important. And I would say, please take a moment to look at your own company's LinkedIn profile and make sure that every single section is completed. It's really common to find that maybe a URL isn't included, or maybe the phone number is not on there. And believe it or not, folks do want to have that information handy. So there's many sections to this about section, which begins with the overview. Strongly recommend that you lead in heavy with exactly who you are and what you do right out of the gate. You can build out subsequent paragraphs. This is a very large text field, so you can add quite a bit of information in there if you'd like. Make sure that you have your website URL indicated here. Again, a phone number, the industry indicated, your company size, where you're physically located, when you were founded. And then this one's kind of the fun one. This one you get to choose from so many different areas that you can populate in here that really give folks a bit of that expanded understanding of really who you are. Now, there's a couple more things that we've got on our checklist. Those include talking about content and posting regularly and getting your employees engaged. And we're going to cover both of those in a lot more detail. So let's go back and take a look at that checklist. So with this checklist, again, make sure that your logo is sized correctly, your cover image is sized correctly, your tagline is really specific to what your core competency is, and then ensure that all of these about sections are filled out. When it comes to content, posting regularly and getting your employees to regularly engage with your content on LinkedIn, again, we're going to talk about that more right now. Okay. Content is king. So how are we going to build content for an entire year in just 1 hour? Well, let me show you. This is a content calendar template, and it's the template that we use here internally at Custom Direct. Now, there's a lot of templates that are available out there. You can Google them and find all kinds of cool ones. I'm going to tell you, we actually use a Google Sheet, and we do that because of the collaborative aspect of Google Sheets. We've got several people here who all contribute to the content that we post on LinkedIn. And so this way we can share our content calendar, and we can leave comments for each other, and we can provide updates. You could accomplish the same thing with an Excel spreadsheet or even a Word document, especially if there's only going to be one specific person who's going to be handling the content for LinkedIn. But these are the 5 key areas of any post that really help you get your feet under you and really start building that content out very rapidly. I know that you can all see it on the screen, so I'm not going to be too repetitive by reading through everything. But first and foremost, whether you want to use specific dates or whether you want to count things off week by week by week, the reason that you may like to use the week rather than a specific date is the ability to go back and reuse content multiple times. Yes, I am suggesting that you're going to reuse content. We're going to talk in just a moment about how some of that same content will be used more than once. Won't be the exact same words, but it's going to be driving traffic to the same places on your website, especially when it comes to your core competencies. Point of the post, that's that second column. Get right to the point with your posts. This is not the time to be writing a term paper. This is the time to grab people's attention and keep them reading your post, and then the most successful part, clicking and going to your website. Every single post that you put on LinkedIn should have a link to your website. Every single post. We call this the 3 R's when it comes to the point of the post. Make sure that your post is readable, that it's relevant, and it's repeatable. Readable, capture someone's attention. They can quickly read it. Again, keep it succinct. Highly recommend that you keep your post to maybe 4 or 5 sentences at the most. Longer forms tend to be more like a blog, and then that blog could actually reside on your website, and you've just got that teaser part that you use as a post, and then you drive people to your website to read the entire blog. Relevant, make sure that it's appealing to the people that are going to be looking at it. We're going to talk about using keywords in just a moment, but that's where the relevancy comes in. And repeatable, that's the key to it all, honestly, is engagement. You want to make sure that folks that are reading your posts find them interesting and that want to respond, whether they want to like it, maybe they want to comment on it. And what would be phenomenal is if they want to share that content because they find it so relevant and repeatable. The link, once again, always use links for whatever page on your website you're pulling the content from. I'm going to show you exactly how to do this in just a moment, but let's just finish working our way right across this template first. Keywords, it's how people find the topics and subjects and other people to connect with on LinkedIn. And it's the hashtag use. Good business practices, try to use at least 3 hashtags. 5 is even better, believe it or not. And again, when we screen share into LinkedIn itself, we're going to talk a little bit more about why those hashtags really matter. And last, but probably one of the most important aspects of this whole template, what's the type of post that you're creating? A capability or a product spotlight post, you should be creating about half the time. So let's say, for instance, you're going to build out 12 posts. 12 posts would be 1 post a month for an entire year. For a company that's perhaps not very active on LinkedIn until now, I think that's a great way to start. Try to get your head around creating 12 posts. And again, you'll easily be able to do that within an hour. Half of them should be about your capabilities or your products. About 25% of the time can be company culture. That can be things that you've got going on within the company, whether it's recognition, whether it's teams that you have within your company. It could be anniversaries. It can also just reflect on your commitment to sustainability, things like that. And then the other 25% of the time should be thought leadership. So those should be topics that are more industry relevant, that don't necessarily have anything to do with your company specifically. Those are a little bit broader in scope so that folks can see that you're thinking beyond just your immediate company and what you do, but you're also appreciating new technology, or maybe there's changes that are going to be impacting the industry as a whole, and you recognize them. This is going to be the only time where I'd say there could be an exception to the rule, and that your links always want to take you to your website. If you have found an incredible blog or information in, say, an industry publication, and you want to share that, absolutely give credit where credit is due. Share a portion of that. It can be a summary in your own words of what you found really interesting about that specific topic, whether it's a blog or an article, and then provide the link to it. Again, if it's relevant to the industry that you're in, folks are going to appreciate the fact that you're sharing this great information. And then last but not least, there's planned spontaneity. Those are just anything outside of, say, company culture. If you happen to have a barbecue this summer and you guys get some pictures and you want to talk about it, that could be a planned spontaneity. There might be a local Chamber of Commerce event that you're at. That's kind of a planned spontaneity. Now, those can just be in addition to whatever you're regularly posting, or they can take the place of. But it's helpful to just, when you're creating your content, to kind of keep in mind, okay, I really want half of them to be about what we do, and then the other half should be a little bit more diverse. It should be a little bit about the company as a whole, a little bit about thought leadership, and then maybe there's just some fun stuff. So let's talk a little bit more now about how do you go about creating that content. Okay, and here we are. So we're on the Custom Direct website, and I'm going to be creating a post. And I'm going to create a post about something that we do, one of our services. So I'm going to go to our services, and I'm going to say e-commerce. Okay, there's a lot on this page about what we do for building e-commerce websites. Look at that, there's another checklist. But we have a checklist, you know, here's a sitemap that we build out for folks when we're working with them. Here's the wireframes, you know, here's all the work that we're going to be doing. There's a lot of really robust information here. So if you're a manufacturer that's considering an e-commerce site, you might actually find this really interesting, but obviously we can't fit all of this in a post. So here's what we do instead. A month ago, we placed this content up on LinkedIn. We took content directly from this page toward the top. Sorry, I'm scrolling so fast. Took content right from this page and then dropped it into a post. We were sure to include the link here that drives people to that page on our website. And then we've got we used 4 hashtags this time. So let's talk just a little bit more now about these hashtags. So I've already mentioned that hashtags are a great way for folks to find you, because they may be searching for content with that specific hashtag, or you may be searching for content with that hashtag. Regardless of which side you're on of that coin, by including hashtags robustly in your posts, you're helping folks come and find your company, find your brand. So highly recommend you use widely searched terms and then narrow them. And it's also a great idea that if you want to start posting regularly on LinkedIn, that you incorporate one for your company, and that you always use that hashtag at the end. So in case folks start following you based just on that hashtag, they're going to find everything that you post. There's other ways they're going to find you as well, but that's another one that you can add in. And so right here, you can see e-commerce is a huge term. It gets searched a lot, and I'm going to show you where you see that. So is manufacturing, sales support to a slightly lesser degree, and then get started on our solution. And so with that, we're going to go back and we're going to go back to our presentation, and here we go. So now we're back here. And we're going to talk about that 15 minutes a day and how to grow your brand awareness. Content is king. If you haven't already gotten that impression by talking about how to build out posts and use a content calendar, valuable, relevant, readable, and repeatable content is the most important aspect of what you're placing on LinkedIn beyond establishing your initial business profile page. Folks that find your content credible and useful will immediately engage and follow. If your content only provides more of a sales pitch, you're probably not going to get as many people interested. So again, that's where that proportion is really key. You know, you want to keep things interesting, where sure, you're talking a bit about what you do, but you're also talking about things happening in the industry as a whole. Beyond content, you want to make sure that your team is really engaged with these company posts. Not only for the posts themselves, and we'll talk a little bit about what that engagement looks like, but then with their own connections as well. So yes, that we want them engaged with the company page, but we also want them engaged with the folks that they're connected with. That might seem kind of obvious, but you'd be surprised how often folks say, oh yeah, you know, I haven't been on LinkedIn in a month or 2 weeks, or yeah, you know, I meant to get on. This is all about 15 minutes a day. And if that seems extreme, or you don't feel like you want to spend the time 15 minutes a day, I'd highly suggest try to make it a daily habit, at least Monday through Friday, and maybe narrow that scope down to even 5 minutes. If you're watching your screen time, or you just don't want to go down a rabbit hole. But you're going to find that by learning to cultivate who you're following and the content that you're following, your brand awareness grows exponentially. So you do have to put a little bit of time in to get those rewards. Hashtags, we just talked about it again. We're going to actually go back into LinkedIn and take a look at how those hashtags work and how you know which ones are really the good ones. Invite your connections to follow your business LinkedIn page. Again, we're going to go back and take a look at that in just a moment. And be sure to remember that LinkedIn has 590 million professionals, I think we saw at the very beginning. And there's so many different opinions on so many different topics. And while some folks feel very strongly that there should never be anything personal on LinkedIn, that it's only supposed to be professional, certainly life and business come together at times. And so be aware that on your business page, it's incredibly important. I say to remain like Switzerland, just be neutral. Try not to take sides on anything. The last thing you want to do is leave an impression with someone that causes them to kind of have ill feelings toward your business, or not be as engaged or interested. Okay, so before we start talking a bit more about how to get your team involved, let's take a look over here at what we've got going on in LinkedIn. Okay. So we covered a couple of things really quickly on that last slide, and we talked about hashtags. And if you're wondering, okay, but how do I know which ones are the good ones? Well, here at Custom Direct, here's just some of the hashtags that we're following, and they're right here. I'm in the super admin view because I'm the one that manages our Custom Direct LinkedIn page. But you can see that when it comes to marketing, there's over 20 million followers. Marketing for manufacturers, there's actually quite a bit, and that number's not populating. Growth solutions, it says that there's only 3, but this is a great way to start finding those key terms that are really important over here, that really have that engagement, I should say. I'm sorry about that. And then here, grow your followers. Right now, you get 250 credits in a 30-day period of time. And what credits are on LinkedIn is that those are the opportunities for you to reach out to folks that you're already connected with and invite them to follow your company's business page. So let me break that down a little bit. because Nancy O'Leary is the admin to the LinkedIn business page for Custom Direct, LinkedIn knows who I am as an individual, and then they also understand that relationship that I have managing the company's LinkedIn page. So I can lean in to the connections that I have, and I can start inviting connections to follow the Custom Direct page. I'm not inviting them to connect because we're already connected. I'm inviting them to follow. And I can ask up to 250 people. I can run through a whole list before LinkedIn will say, okay, for this 30-day period of time, you've now hit your max. The cool thing is, once people start clicking on yes, they want to follow Custom Direct, that's a new credit that I get back. So if you get in the habit of whether you're the super admin person or the person that is, I'm kind of guessing for most of the folks that are here today, you're probably the super admin, or you know who that person is. If you happen to be the person that is the most forward facing with clients in your company, and you're not the super admin on LinkedIn, and you can have multiple, I'd highly encourage you to become one for this reason alone. Chances are greater than not that if your company has a relatively small presence on LinkedIn, but you've got a very robust career and you've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of connections, it would make sense for you to have this admin access so that you could go in, if for no other reason than to invite connections. And Eric's going to let me know if anybody's got questions on this part of it, because this is the part where folks tend to kind of have questions. Again, right here, you can start adding hashtags that you want to follow. And right up here is that search. So let's say we do marketing for manufacture. Oops, would be good if I spelled right, huh? And make sure we use the hashtag. And when I do that, it's going to be interesting. All of these different posts are going to come up. Anyone who's ever listed anything, and it's going to come from the most recent to further back, that use that hashtag. So this gives me the opportunity now to start going back and looking and saying, oh, okay, wow, Tara's probably somebody that we want to start following as a company. And then we can turn around and invite her to start following Custom Direct. Because again, I'm operating as Custom Direct in this capacity. Let's get back to the webinar. Oh, I see that there's a quick question. Oh yeah, it's just Eric telling everybody, hey, get in. And so now let's go back. And share. Okay, and so now we're talking about engaging your team to spread your reach. First and foremost, really strongly encourage any of your client or customer facing employees should have LinkedIn profiles. If they do, you want to make sure that they are engaged with the content that you're putting out. You want to make sure that any of the content that is on the business page for your company, that you've got folks that on your team that are liking, commenting, and sharing. There's one thing that's really key, and that's for anyone on your team that's on LinkedIn, you want to make sure that they are properly linked to your business page. And the reason I bring that up is it's very, very common for folks to, in the experience section of their LinkedIn profile, to have the company listed where they're currently working. And yet there may just be gray boxes to the left of their name where the logo goes. And that means that they haven't actually linked to the company LinkedIn page. So let me show you what that looks like. And so over here, you can see here's my profile. I'm here as Nancy O'Leary, and I'm going to come down to my experience section. And right here next to Custom Direct, where I am right now, you can see our logo is there. Now, if my logo wasn't there, we'd know that there was a problem. Like down here, for instance, is the perfect case in point. This company doesn't exist anymore and they don't have a LinkedIn page. So it's just these squares, these rectangles that are there. Let me show you how easy it is to fix this. So check your own and then have everybody on your team check too. If I click on this and the company name, let's say, as soon as I start changing it, see, it doesn't know who it is. So let's say I just say custom direct. Well, it defaults to some gray box that isn't anything. I have to actively go down, select custom direct Inc. and where the logo is, and then click on save, and then it populates it here. So make sure everyone's got a logo on your team. That means then that they are linked to the company profile page. Why does that matter? If your team members are active on LinkedIn and someone decides, hey, this guy really knows what they're talking about, this woman really posts some insightful content, I'd like to learn more about them, they're going to be able to click right here, because this will be now a hyperlink, and it won't be a hyperlink, for instance, down here where you can see there isn't anything because that company doesn't exist anymore. Again, they're not on LinkedIn. But here you can actually click on it and it's going to take that visitor then right to the custom direct page. And this is what they'd see. And they'd start to learn all that information all over again. Here's the about and what have you. So that's just a quick little tidbit to share. Okay, so here we are. So we're back to how to engage your team. Again, strongly encourage your customer-facing employees to have LinkedIn profiles. Be sure everyone on the team has their experience properly linked to your team, to your company, so that the logo shows. You also want to be sure that after each LinkedIn post, you're notifying employees that there's a post. We'll show you that in just a sec. And then ask your team members to engage with those company posts, like them. That'll populate then on the feeds of anyone they're connected with that Joe Smith has now liked this particular content. If they comment or if they share it with comments to their own page, that's spectacular. That's just exponentially growing that reach, and you'd be surprised at how quickly that happens. Let's just jump over really quick so I can show you how you go about showing folks how to navigate and notify. So right here, custom direct. We've got a post ready to go. We're delighted to have this LinkedIn Insight today. And I've got some information about getting started, jumping into growth, and I'm using 3 hashtags. I'm going to go ahead and hit post. And when I do that, I can go ahead and recommend it to all the employees. I can say, not now, here's how you notify employees. I'm going to say, yes, I'm recommending that. Now, I could have told them things to say, but instead, I know that folks are going to do a great job and they're going to have their own comments. And here we are. And so that really covers, in essence, an awful lot of the topics that we were talking about just a little bit earlier in terms of how to get started on LinkedIn, what your company profile page should look like, how you can develop content for an entire year within an hour, how to get your employees a little bit more engaged to help spread your brand. Even talked a bit about what a content calendar would look like, but totally understand that there's a lot that's already on your plate. And to grow your brand awareness on LinkedIn may just be a bridge too far right now, and that you understand the need to be on LinkedIn or to be more involved on LinkedIn to get greater engagement, but you're not really sure when you should get help. And I'd say that these are probably the 3 key times to think about it. If your website lacks clear navigation for your core competencies, that would be a great time to get some help. When we took a look at, say, for instance, our site, and we talked about what our areas of expertise were, by having those areas broken down page by page, it is very intuitive and very straightforward to build out that content calendar, because each of those core competencies can be a post, and there's a specific page to send people to about that. If you've got a website where a lot of your competencies are kind of mixed together, or they're all on one page, that doesn't mean that that's a problem. It just means that while you're going to be talking about one specific competency, the link that you provide is going to be sending people to a page that has a lot of other information on it. So if you're thinking about making any revisions to your website, and again, I'm not trying to complicate the situation, but if you don't have clearly defined navigation for what your competencies are, this might require you need a little bit more help to get that information really streamlined to use on LinkedIn. Maybe your content development needs are significant. What's your time worth? Do you have the time to build out the content for an entire year? The process that we showed with using that content calendar, it would take you less than an hour to build out 12 posts, utilizing the information that already exists on your website. That's assuming that you're going to use one of those posts a month, but chances are greater than not that you're going to see the benefits of really leaning into LinkedIn, and you're going to want to post more frequently than that. And so probably those 12 posts might actually only take you through maybe 3 or 4 months, because maybe you're going to be trying to post almost weekly. Well, now you've got to build out the rest. I made a quick reference to how you can reuse material, and you can. So a great rule of thumb is when you're creating a post about one of your core competencies, those are going to probably be maybe 3 or 4 sentences long. You're going to be pulling information directly from that page on your website. Well, when you continue to build out your content calendar and you go back to that specific competency, maybe it's CNC machining, that second time that you post it, which may be 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months later, you can literally switch some of the sentences around. The post will look different. You will still be sending folks to the same page on your website, but it's not the exact same content. Now you can be more robust than that, and you can completely change the content if there's another aspect of CNC machining that you want to address. Absolutely. But if you're looking for a straightforward path to get started on getting great content up on LinkedIn for your business, consider doing that, considering just a little bit of massaging back and forth with some of that content, switching some sentences around. And lastly, if your LinkedIn business page doesn't even exist, or you don't have anybody in-house that can really work on it, then that's probably a good time to get some help. The great news is just getting started is a very straightforward process on LinkedIn. Establishing that business page, building that content calendar out, and getting your employees engaged with the content that's being posted from your business page is really the foundation that pays off significantly. I'm gonna give you one quick example. There's a company that we worked with at the very beginning of last year that had, I think, about 100 followers, and their sales were decent, and they were relatively happy with how things were. But who wants to just stay happy? Who doesn't want significant growth? And they wanted significant growth. And so one of the ideas that came forward as part of a growth initiative had to do with their LinkedIn presence, and the fact that they weren't really aggressively using their presence. They had a page, they occasionally posted if they went to an expo, but they weren't really leaning into it. The interesting thing was they had 4 very vital members of their team that had significant connections on LinkedIn, and yet they weren't really using them. They had built those connections out personally, but the company wasn't really benefiting from those connections. And so by using these exact tactics that we just covered, by building a content calendar out, by making sure that everyone on the team was engaged, and when those posts were up, the employees were being notified that the posts were ready, and they were engaging, and they were liking and commenting and sharing those onto their own pages. And so before Thanksgiving, that company hit 1,000 followers. Their sales went through the roof before the end of the summer, and they had to hire another full-time salesperson. They continued to grow exponentially. And honestly, the big change was LinkedIn and leaning into LinkedIn. And that's really it in a nutshell. I think there might be some questions. So Eric, Do we want to start to cover some questions?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I do see one here from Drew. He says, how can I, as an admin, remove people that say they're an employee of our company when they're not an employee?
Okay, that's a great question. So here's what you do. You, as an admin, can actually reach out to LinkedIn and advise them that that person is not an employee. It may take them up to 60 days to remove them. They will try notifying that person to ask them to change, but they're pretty responsive. So the good news is they can be removed. The bad news is it might take a couple of months, but you can reach out to LinkedIn directly.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, do feel free to put them in the chat. Oh, I do have a couple here. Great. One here from Karen. Are all the recommendations you made today part of the basic free platform?
Yes. Yep. I'm not talking about LinkedIn Sales Navigator or paid ads or anything else. All of this, I mean, thanks for bringing that up, Karen. This is all free. This is all part of just having a business profile and really leaning into it.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions coming in. This is great. Next one says, how can I determine who is a super admin for my company?
Oh, boy. Does whoever asked that question, are they already the super admin or they have no idea who is? You've got to go to, there's somebody internally has to know who the super admin is. There's no way that LinkedIn can tell you. Unless you are the business owner, and then you can reach out to LinkedIn and they can help you establish that. More often than not, if you already have a presence on LinkedIn as a company, it's somebody within your IT department that did it. I know that's kind of a lame answer, but there's no other way to do it. Somebody knows who it is. And if, you might be asking this because you have no idea who it is, or it's been a really long time since anyone did anything, and perhaps that person isn't part of your team anymore. You can request admin access from LinkedIn directly. LinkedIn has a phenomenal help desk that you could reach out to and say the person is no longer with the company and we need admin level access to get to our business page.
Okay, yeah, they just followed up by saying, how can I change the super admin away from a former employee? So I guess that's what he said there.
Yes, you need, that's usually when folks ask. So you need to get in there as a super admin because then you can remove people. But if that was the only person, then you got to go to LinkedIn and say, they don't even work here. I need to be able to get in.
Yeah. Right. Next question is, what type of content can generate engagement from our audience?
What type of content can generate engagement? Okay, so we talked a bit about how maybe half the time you want to talk about your products and services, and that other half of the time there should be some subject matter expertise, some things that are relevant to the industry as a whole, and then things that are about your company culture. This is a great opportunity when you talk about your products and services to put yourself in the place of the person who's reading the post. So let me put it another way. You don't want the post to be, we're so great, here's what we do, we make this really cool part, because frankly, you know, it's kind of obnoxious. Instead, take the approach that you're here to solve a problem. A great way to show your expertise is a mini case study. You can talk about a customer came in with this broken part and we were able to mill this for them using this machine and using this technique. That way you're showing your expertise, and then to learn more about how we do this, check out, and you put the link back to your website. That way you're showing your expertise, you're showing how you problem solve, and you're providing them the opportunity to go back to your website and to learn a lot more detail about it. Case studies, mini case studies, and maybe I should even just call them micro, because we're just talking about maybe 4 sentences, really summarized to just the high level. If you're taking a really technical aspect of something you do, the tried and true method that always works is pretend that you are explaining the situation to someone who has absolutely no understanding of what you do at all. It can be somebody really young, it can be somebody really old, it can be somebody that just doesn't understand the industry at all. And consider the fact that LinkedIn themselves recommends that all of your posts be written at a 6th grade level. I'm going to repeat that, a 6th grade level. That goes back to the readable part. So that doesn't mean that you want to like dumb down your content. It just means you want it to be quickly readable. You know, the fact that so many folks are just reading your posts on their phone and they're just swiping and scrolling quickly, you know, it's got to be that quick attention grabbing. You don't have to bury a lot of heavy detail right at the beginning. That detail should be on your website, and you're just drawing them enough with that first sentence or two that's catchy.
That was a great answer. Thank you. The person who asked that question before, Diana, I believe she followed up and said, would you recommend we engage with current customers or potential customers?
Both. Here's the thing. This comes up a lot. Oh my gosh, this is a great question too, Diana. Thank you. There's some concerns when we're working with manufacturers. Some manufacturers are hesitant to have their team on LinkedIn, particularly engineers or any high demand role, because they're just afraid that the competition is going to come in and see who's working for you and then see if they can poach them away. So totally understand that. That's why we would recommend the customer facing folks that tend to be known, you know, in the industry. Those are the folks that should be really actively engaged with your company on LinkedIn. I don't know that that answered your question though. Eric, what do you think? Did that Diana's question?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's good to kind of have a good balance between both of them.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, Dana, if that didn't answer your question, shoot another one up there.
yeah. Again, feel free to put questions in the chat. We have a lot of great ones here, so I appreciate everyone's engagement today. Next question was, do you recommend keeping the employee list current, therefore reaching out to LinkedIn and having the past employees removed?
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, if it's always helpful if it's somebody, if it's someone that you still have any kind of a communication with, to ask them to update it. You know, most folks kind of change that out about a month after they leave your company. If it's been longer than that and you're still listed as I should say they're still listed as a current employee. Yeah, I mean, then I'd reach out to LinkedIn, especially if you have reasons that you'd rather not have them associated with your company. Yep.
Yeah. Next one says, are the analytics better to post video content or still photos or both?
Analytics. So Eric and I were talking about this before we came on. We could do an entire presentation on LinkedIn analytics. Let me just say this. LinkedIn analytics are awesome. And I'm gonna do what I said I wasn't gonna do, Eric. I'm just gonna do one little thing. So I've changed my mind. I'm a goof. And here we are. So I have the super admin view. For anyone that's wondering, here I am on the custom direct page and I'm clicking on analytics. So, you know, we just had that question about analytics. The analytics for free that are on LinkedIn are so robust. There is so much information that you can get from analytics. So if you're asking which has better engagement, video or still pictures, here's the deal. They all do well. A post that has only text tends to kind of be, I wouldn't say useless, but it really doesn't get much engagement, to be honest with you. You want to make sure that you include at a minimum an image. Video is always key. And here's another trick. Because you're including a link to somewhere on your website when you're posting, that image will populate. This image here populated because that's the image that we've got on our website that's associated with that page. But to your question about analytics, again, this could be an entire presentation all on it, but there's so much here, all these carrots. So you can go through and you can take a look at your content in analytics. You can change this and say for the last year, you want to understand what's going on. What have we been posting? We had an awful lot going on. Things have been really quiet. Been busy doing webinars. And then you get to find out what's really happening? You know, where do you have your strongest impressions? Where are folks really getting involved? And this helps you understand if there's a core competency that you have that really got a lot of engagement. Man, well, then that's the one that you want to lean into and you want to continue to post on. So I would say keep a strong eye on those engagement numbers under your analytics. And then be sure that you tap back into that you're going back and talking about that a little bit more.
Yeah, great, thank you. I believe that is, I don't believe I missed any of the questions.
Okay.
Thank you again for everyone for being so engaged with the questions. We appreciate it. If you do have any more, of course, you can always contact Nancy and she'll be happy to help. Yeah, I believe that's all the questions we have for now. So I will wrap up today by thanking Nancy for joining us and sharing all this great information with us today. We appreciate it and it's been very insightful for all of us. If you remind us today before we close out, with the next couple of days, you will receive the recording of today's session, as well as the slides and additional resources that Nancy will provide. Be sure to take a look and check out the IMEC events page for future events. Nancy is someone we have on pretty regularly and she always does a great job. So be sure to keep an eye out for future events, and thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate it and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye. Okay,